What do you do when your car has 15 layers of paint on it? You gotta strip it. Check this video out. Where to even start on this? Let's start at the beginning. So every single car, no matter how long you've had it, has a story. And that's some of the interesting parts about getting to work on cars, is that you get to see just how involved the history is of a car. Is it truly mint and pristine, or has it had some cosmetic work in the past? And when I started on this car, even though we somewhat knew what we thought was a story, we quickly found out was not. So I started digging in on the roof of this car first, just to see what the issues were. And the more I dug in, the worse it got. We wound up finding out that this car had 15 layers of paint on it. About 5 different paint jobs on top of factory, and I'll just leave this here so you can count the tree rings on it. And it was absolutely insane to think that there's that much work on it. And at that point, we pretty much made the decision to go ahead and take this car down to bare metal. Now, in this is where you really start finding all of the bugs that are in a car. We could have gone with chemical stripper, but the chemical strippers of today, while they're okay, and they worked well on the Le Mans project with that being lacquer, this is 5 layers of urethane or acrylic at some point, back in the 80s when this car came out, and it wasn't going to touch it. So we went through to mechanically strip this thing. So I used my Dynabrade 8-inch Mud Hog, VA, and I even broke out my Eastwood SCT, the Contour SCT. One of the best things about whenever you're having to strip a car is that you can never have enough tools. There's so many different attachments that you can use to get into all the little nooks and crannies and just use what you can. The nice thing about the SCT is that you're not draining your air compressor, and Lord knows, hopefully this year my compressor I will be replacing because it's on borrowed time. And it was never designed, or never gotten with the original intent to go through and do this kind of work. My dad bought the compressor, over 20 years ago when my brother and myself were just getting into cars, working on that was. And yeah, I wasn't even, just barely starting to tinker with body stuff. So we got this thing stripped down to bare metal. And then at that point, we needed to go through and get everything cleaned up in the shop. So we did some housekeeping, got everything cleaned up, and went through to remask the car. And my little daughter came out. She came out and gave me a hand on taping and masking everything up. And from there, we went ahead and we got it into epoxy. Now, for the epoxy, the reason is, yes, you can go over and do bare metal on top of steel. That's not that big of a deal. Are you gonna have as good of corrosion protection if you don't put an epoxy down? And the answer to that is no. The epoxy, what it's going to do is, it's such a tight molecular structure on it, is the epoxy is going to go on and actually seal up the metal and basically form a barrier so nothing can go through on it. So with this, we went through, obviously we're hitting cold temperatures now, and thankfully for it being a little cooler, we're not having to deal with as much humidity in the air and surface rust like we normally would here in Georgia. So it was able to keep it really clean and then go through, put 2 coats of epoxy on, and then we're going to go ahead and start the body work in the next video. So one thing about this is that cars have a history and you never know what you're going to find. But what we're going to do is just walk you through step by step. Right here we're getting ready to 2K prime. In the next video we're going to be doing body work and get it into polyester. So be well, stay safe. Appreciate you tuning in.